Fabulous first grade families, Miss Wood here with you just to talk about a couple of things that are coming home with report cards. Every year, 3 times a year, every first grader in Rapid City area schools takes 2 different assessments, one for their reading skills and one for their math skills. And what I like to liken it to is like when you go to the doctor's office for your checkup, one of the things that they do is they take your temperature. That's not, just because you don't have a temperature doesn't mean that there's not something wrong. And if you have a temperature, that doesn't necessarily mean, that you're terminal or whatever. So this kind of just gives us a quick check to see, hey, are the kids on trucking along, or are they, or should we be worried, basically? So a couple things that I want you to keep in mind with these tests is they are 1 minute timed. So if your child is one of those kiddos who just doesn't do well under that timed pressure, this is not the be all end all, but it's one of the data points that we use. Throughout the year, so our report cards are based on end of year standards. This is not based on end of year. This is based on where kids should be at this point in the year. So the target moves, that it gets, we expect them to have more points in each area as the year goes on, because hopefully I'm teaching them something, right? The test changes. It's not the same test every time. I'm not saying that there are new words every time, although there are. The things that we test on are not the same every time. So I'm gonna give you some insight as to how to look at this so that it's not crazy worrisome. Okay? So you're gonna get something that looks kind of like this. This is an example of the reading. Okay? You'll notice up here, beginning of the year, this kiddo had, these are for the composite scores. And looking at first blush, if you look at this child's composite score, they had 73 in the beginning of the year. Now they have 28. That's one of the times that parents start to freak out a little bit. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. Because the reason that it appears as though he's gone backwards is because the test is not the same. So the composite score actually goes backwards in the proficiency level at this time of year because we are not testing the same tests. So this is the composite score is just all of them put together, okay? And then they do some fancy math. What you want to look at is this NFW, it stands for Nonsense Word Fluency, Correct Letter Sounds, NFWCLS. If you look, middle of the year, this kid got 22 correct letter sounds. That doesn't line up. It looks like he got worse, but that's not the same skill. You need to come up here. This is the skill that you should be comparing this to. So if you look, at the beginning of the year, they had 7 correct letter sounds. Now they had 22. He's almost tripled his letter sounds. So please don't panic when you look and see just because they don't line up, dig a little deeper to see if your child is actually making progress. And same thing here, you'll notice you don't see a PSF up here. We don't give that assessment again in the middle of the year, so that gets dropped off. If you want to know more about those assessments, this will tell you a little bit more about what they're taking the temperature of, basically, what the skill that they're testing. Pardon me. Luckily, they have basically the same thing in math. You'll see a little something that looks like this. Again, if you look at this composite score, it looks like this child went from 77 to 41. It's not the same. We're not taking the same number of tests, so we would expect their score to drop. And look, at the beginning of the year, they were red. Now they're yellow. So they've moved up on our proficiency scale, despite the fact that the number is lower. Because we're not doing number ID in the winter. We hope the kids know their numbers by now. We aren't doing next number in the winter, because we hope they know their next numbers. Now, the first apples to apples comparison you can make on the math scores are this AQD, and you have to come way up here. In the winter, this kid had 7 identified advanced quantity discrimination points. Down here, they have 19, which is great, some amazing growth. Same with missing number fluency. They had 2 in the fall, now they have 6. Computation, they had 2 in the fall, now they have 10. So what I'm trying to say is ensure that you're comparing apples to apples before you panic here. And if you're gonna weight one of the things to be concerned about, I would hold off on being concerned about this, because it only barely scratches the surface of what your child knows. So don't panic, compare the apples to apples, progress over perfection. And if you have any concerns or any worries or anything that you have questions about, please reach out to your child's teacher, because they would love to answer those for you. Thanks for sticking with me. I know this is kind of dry, but I hope it helps.